So, ladies and gentlemen, some rappers just hate freedom, and we're going to talk about why they hate freedom and why many fans enjoy the fact that these crash outs hate freedom. But before we do, make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe button. So, Pooh Shiesty, within the last 24 hours, he got arrested for him, his dad, and like 7 other people. They got arrested for allegedly kidnapping and robbing Gucci Man and Gucci Man's cameraman, and then forcing Gucci to sign a release form to get him off the label. But before we get into that specific situation, we gotta do a quick rewind on what happened in Pooh Shiesty's career that led to this, what's most likely going to be this nail in the coffin, so to speak. So in 2020, during the whole lockdown, Pooh Shiesty blew up with the song Back in Blood, and then shortly after that, he became one of the hottest artists coming out of Memphis, one of the hottest artists in the country, period. And instead of maximizing that opportunity, he was still taking big risk with his life and his freedom. So he allegedly shoots somebody, like a sneaker dealer. He shoots him in front of a police station. And then you fast forward a year to 2021, he ends up shooting in a nightclub, which then he gets arrested for and charged for sentenced to 5 years. And he ends up actually getting out early. He got out after 3 years in 2025, which was last year. And he actually was able to pick up right where he left off, which is pretty rare when you really think about it. Many rappers, when they go to jail for multiple years, most of the time people lose interest because people are fickle and people have short attention spans. So people really aren't that tapped in with artists who go to jail left and right. But again, 3 years later, people were still very interested in hearing Pooh Shiesty's music, and he was able to pick up where he left off. He drops First Day Out, which at this point, for artists that go to jail, that's kind of becoming a tradition at this point for them to put out a First Day Out song. And Pooh Shiesty's First Day Out song was actually pretty dope in my opinion, and it got him a lot of traction all over again. So you think he was doing good, and he's about to, go on a run for a couple of years. But what ends up happening is, a few months ago, there was this story that kind of got swept under the rug after it got reported, where allegedly Pooh Shiesty kidnaps and robs Gucci Man. And I'm assuming it was swept under the rug or forgotten about by most people because it sounded so ridiculous to the point where you're just like, nah, did he really do that? Like, I don't know. Like, that sounds a little far-fetched. But now we have confirmation that did in fact happen, because again, he was arrested by the FBI. Him and a bunch of people, they were rounded up and arrested, and the DOJ did an entire press conference talking about what happened, talking about why they arrested him. And this is obviously a devastating moment for the people who like Pooh Shiesty's music, or were big fans of him, because realistically, this is not going to end well. Like, he just got out of jail last year, and he was on 5 years of probation, robbing people and kidnapping people and all this stuff that obviously violates that probation. Like, I'm not an expert on that, but I'm pretty sure that violates people's probation. So he's definitely cooked. Like, he's probably gonna go to jail for the next 20 years, something like that. And even though he got lucky the first time where he went to jail for 3 years and people still cared about the music, there is no way he goes to jail for 20 years and people are still gonna care. People are not gonna care in 2046 about Pooh Shiesty getting out and releasing more music. That's not gonna happen, man. So it's a very fascinating situation, because again, you talk about another artist, another rapper who has a big time opportunity in front of them, and it gets thrown down the toilet essentially because they just want to keep it too real, so to speak. Like, it's like that old Dave Chappelle skit, when keeping it real goes wrong, because apparently the reason they robbed him and kidnapped him is because they wanted him to release Pooh Shiesty from the record deal that he was under, because Pooh Shiesty has been signed to 1017 Records, and Pooh Shiesty, from his perspective, may feel like Gucci Man wasn't that supportive of him coming out of jail when he went to jail, whereas he may have felt like Yo Gotti was way more supportive, so he may have wanted to leave that label to go sign with Yo Gotti, because typically Yo Gotti is the guy in hip hop who signs a lot of talented people from Memphis, whether it's like people like Glorilla or anybody else. Like, he tries to really go out of his way to really get them under his wing. So, and then also there have been allegations that Gucci and Yo Gotti don't see eye to eye. So some people may say that Gucci might have only signed Pooh Shiesty out of spite, and once he realized he actually could have been a star, he wanted to hold on to him for dear life. But even then, it's just again, you trying to literally take a street route to get out of a record deal. I can't even wrap my head around. You either got to be very dumb or very, very arrogant to think that this couldn't go left on you. Because again, especially if you are not only assaulting Gucci, but also allegedly it was like his cameraman or something like that, or assistant. So now you're also getting people involved who may not live by these street type of codes, who have no problem reporting this to the police, because why wouldn't you? And it puts you in a weird spot to where, again, his career is over at this point. But hip hop fans, I want to quickly talk about how weird hip hop fans can be sometimes, because if you couldn't already tell, I don't feel sorry for Pooh Shiesty. It just is what it is. Like, if he wants to throw away a good opportunity, you gotta just let him. But what's interesting is, since this has happened yesterday, I've already seen many hip hop fans say that the fact that he did this they think that it makes his music hit that much harder because it's real. And again, I just think a lot of people in hip hop, they have what I think at this point is a pretty silly obsession with being real, because at the end of the day, man, this should only really be entertainment, man. Like, you shouldn't worry too much about how authentic this is or that is, because at the end of the day, what's so funny to me is the only time people really want to talk about something being real is when it's something self-destructive. Because I remember a few years ago when Chance the Rapper put out that album, I think it was called The Big Day. Now, that was the album that everybody made fun of because he kept talking about like his wife and marriage and all that stuff. But I'm like, hey, like, technically that's real, but it wasn't the type of real that people respected, so they didn't acknowledge it. People only, unfortunately, within hip hop, they only want to acknowledge self-destructive things as real, which, I mean, that's fine. But my main thing is, you start to get tired of seeing people, after the person who was, the realist, once they crash out, people will act surprised. Like, they'll act surprised that this artist went to jail or this artist died. And it's like, at some point, you got to stop acting surprised about these type of things if you are that obsessed with it being real. Because if you really recognize that you want this to be authentic, you also should have enough common sense to recognize that there's real consequences. Like, this could go left. And as we see with this Pooh Shiesty situation, it went left. Like, the odds of him getting out of this scot-free, I mean, it's very low. Like, it's possible, but you're talking about a very, very slim chance. And, the reason I think people have an obsession with being real within hip hop, one of the reasons is, in a weird way, it feels like a lot of people don't look at rappers as humans. They just kind of view them like video game characters, to where you think these guys could just do all this reckless stuff, and like, no matter what, they could always just they could always start over, like respawn like a video game character when the video game character dies. And obviously that's not real life. But let me know